Well, thanks for tuning in to the Essential Craftsman podcast. I'm Nate. Before we get into today's interview, I have a quick announcement. We have a new Instagram account. It's called Craftsman Essentials, and I invite all of you to check it out if you're a regular Instagram user. We're going to use this account as a place to share the tools, the gear, the camera tech, all of the products and things that we use regularly at Essential Craftsman, the things that we love, we're going to post and share them there. There's going to be clothing. There's going to be, like I said, antique and old tools as well as new tools that can be bought today. And it's mostly photos, but there'll be some stories and such. I am a very serious consumer / online shopper. Honestly, I just love it. And so if you're that type of a person, you'll probably enjoy it. But it's also good if you're not, because it will be a helpful spot to find recommendations for gift items and some ideas on prices if you're shopping for something used. For example, lots of the old tools my dad has can kind of only be bought used. And so we're going to be sharing, when we share those items, we'll talk and share some of the price guidelines that we have found, like for anvils, for example. So I hope you check it out if you're an Instagram person. Now, today's interview is with Shawn Van Dyke. And I learned about Shawn from Chris Ermides from This Old House. Shawn is a contractor business coach or consultant. And we have hired consultants with Essential Craftsman now 4 times, I believe. And every time we've come away way ahead in terms of what we paid the person. We have felt often like we're kind of in another world here making this video content, and we certainly don't know we certainly don't always know what the right choice is and how to strategize and how to do this. And so paying for advice has been a really valuable tool for us. And so I was really excited to learn about Shawn, and he's providing this same type of a service for contractors. If you're a contractor, or if you know a contractor or been around a lot of contractors, you'll know there's parts of the business that can get a little haywire and can lead to issues in the business. This is why so many contractors don't make it for the long run, and this is probably why so many contractors are always kind of behind and late and disappointing their customers, because it's not easy to run a business. Talking with Shawn and hearing him speak just generally about contracting was really fun, and kind of I appreciated it, because here's a guy who's been successful in it and has helped other people become successful. It is a great business, and I'm sure we have listeners who are going to take away some things from this for their contracting business that will be helpful. Shawn wrote a book called Profit First for Contracting. If you feel like you could use some help, that would be a good place to start. That's a very low cost way to get some good information. The book has like sterling 5-star reviews on Amazon and appears to be very well loved. And he has other services that we talk about towards the end of the interview. But for the most part, this is just he and I talking about contracting, what it is that makes it a challenging business, and some of the things that he has developed and some of the systems and ways that he advises his clients who are contractors looking to improve their life, reduce their stress, and build systems to manage their business. Without any further ado, my conversation with Shawn Van Dyke. Shawn, thanks for taking the time to come and chat with us today. How's it going? How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Will you give us, I read your bio on your website, but will you give me and the audience a big picture of your background and kind of how you got to where you are now, and kind of give us the backstory?
Yeah, sure. So by education and training, or by just sending a lot of tuition money to the University of Tennessee, I eventually ended up with a couple of engineering degrees. So I started my career in construction, even though that might offend some people when they say, oh, he used to be an engineer. I make fun of engineers because he used to be one, but I got a degree in civil engineering and then a master's in structural engineering, and then went out and did the engineering thing for several years, and then realized I don't really know how to build anything, and I wanted to get out on the job site. So transitioned from, I say transitioned from engineering into construction. I really got laid off from the engineering firm I was working for,
Wow.
and went and joined a project management team for a large commercial contractor. That put me out on large commercial sites, building all sorts of stuff. And I really, really liked that. Did that for a few years, then wound my way up working for some architects and then for a real estate developer and doing construction management. So I ended up traveling around the country building commercial real estate projects, big box stores and the outlot, developing outlots and all
Huh.
of that kind of stuff. Did that for several years. And by this time I was married, I have 5 kids now. So the second kid was on the way. And my wife was
Huh.
like, I'm glad you're enjoying your job, but you got to stick around here. I mean, I was on the road 3 or 4 days a week, wherever the projects were. So that was
Yeah.
my first business that I started back in 2005, was a construction management and real estate development company. And I'm here in Knoxville, Tennessee. So I was doing that work here locally. Then, 2008 hit and banks were not lending money to real estate developers anymore. So I
Yeah.
transitioned from there and started a remodeling and general contracting business. Yeah, people these days call it a pivot. I didn't realize I was pivoting at the time. By this time I had 3 kids, fourth
You're
on the way. I don't know. I can't keep
yeah.
track of them. Uh, so put the tool belt on and started a small construction company and built it up from there. And
Wow.
then one of my subcontractors, my trim and millwork subcontractor, young guy, we went to church together. His business was blowing up because he got into the high end trim and millwork market here in our area. And typical typical construction business owner, great craftsman, horrible business person. And he
Yeah.
approached me one day and said, "Man, I like the way that you run your construction business and
Huh.
everything's always organized. I want to talk to you about like how to run a better business." So we met up for lunch and was talking to him about that and giving him some tips and tricks. And I didn't know he was interviewing me at the time. He said, "Okay, well, I think I need to hire somebody to run my construction business or my trim and millwork company."
Huh.
And I said, "Yeah, I think you should do that because you're a horrible business person, but you're an awesome, you're awesome craftsman and great with the guys and out in the field, and the work was just unbelievable." And he just said, "Okay, I want you to do it." And so I thought, I was like, no, I got my own thing going on. I'm okay. And he's a great salesman. And he's like, listen, you have a small construction company. It's going to take you 20 years to get where you want to be. I'm already in those projects as a subcontractor. We've landed some really high end stuff. But this business that we just acquired, meaning that the project's coming up, he said, it's going to
Mhm.
put me out of business doing these projects because I don't know what I'm doing.
Mm.
And he he said, I want you to come and run the business. And I thought I'd call his bluff and say, okay, the only way I'm going to run your business is that you let me run the business. You run the field, I'll run the business, but I'm in charge of the business side of it. And he said, no problem. And he literally pulled out a manila folder with the entire business in it, just
Wow.
random paper. Here's the business, slid across the table and said, you run it. And I went home, talked to my wife, and I said, this is a crazy idea. This is really stupid, but my friend's going to suffer. And he was right. It was an opportunity to get on some really into high level projects, high end projects that I'd already
Mhm.
always been wanting to do. And so I just kind of stepped back and said, all right, maybe we should do this. And so bit the bullet, joined that team as the chief operating officer. And at the time, I think we had 6 guys out in the field, and within 18 months, we were at 22 guys, and the
Wow.
company was in debt and not making any money. And we kind of turned that around. And again, that wasn't all me. We had great team and a great owner that had a really good vision, and I was just the executor and putting systems in place. So did that for about 4 years, and then got another crazy idea saying, "Hey, what I've done with my businesses and now with this trim and millwork business, I think I see the problem here within an industry. I think I can help a lot more business
Mhm.
owners with systems. And all I know is construction. That's all I'd ever done. And so after about 4 years of being the executive there, I left that job and started writing books and speaking at industry events. And now it's 4 years later, and I've been doing coaching and consulting work strictly
Mhm.
for construction business owners since that was back in 2016. So yeah, right at 4
Wow.
years we've been doing this.
Um, Before we move on, but are you recommending to your kids they go to college? You spent a lot of time in college. You said a master's in engineering of some type. So talk about that for a sec. Are you going to
Man,
push
you're
your
going to
kids
make
that
me, if
way
my
or what?
mom hears this, she's going to get offended because she gets offended every time I say
Yeah.
this. But am I encouraging my kids to go to college? No, not specifically. I'm encouraging my kids to develop skills in areas that interest them and figuring out how they can make money at it. Now, some of those things that some of my kids are interested in now will require them to go to college. But especially as we're seeing in 2020, man, college has changed. They're
I
still
know.
charging the same tuition rate, but they're not
Yeah.
allowing you to go on campus and all of the other things that higher
Yeah.
education said, like, here's where our value is. Now they're saying, nope, can't come to campus. We're going to do it
Yeah.
all virtually. So I think the whole world has changed. So, but to answer your question, no, I don't encourage my kids to go to college. I don't discourage them from going to college. I
Yeah.
feel like it's my job as a parent when you're out on your own, which I got 4 boys and a baby girl. I say baby girl. She's 5. She's always going to be my baby girl.
Yeah.
But the boys, they're on their own at 18.
Yeah.
And you better figure out how you're going to make money at 18. And if that means you're going to college, then you know what? I was on the 5-year plan to get my undergraduate. Now it was a 4-year plan, right? But I worked the entire time and paid for most of my college through work. They can do the same thing. So, and it, if you look statistically, it takes most people at least 6 years to get an undergraduate degree, and only 40% of incoming freshmen even graduate with a degree at all. So,
Yeah.
do I encourage them to go that path? Only if it interests them. Only if that's where their future lies. Hey, one of my kids wants to be a doctor. Yeah, you probably better go to college.
Right.
I have several of them that are interested in computer stuff and graphic design and other things. And I got my 14-year-old son this year just started working for a contractor and over the summer, and he came home with more money and more cash in his pocket. And I said, yeah, that's what happens when you go work, and that's what happens
Yeah.
when you develop a skill. So,
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. At least college has always been expensive. At least you used to get a good party out of it. Now they took that away. You can't even
yeah, exactly.
be on campus to party. So it's sort of what's left.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
So I've known a lot of contractors in my life. My dad, who's our audience is really familiar with it. My dad primarily, he's been a contractor my whole life, and I'll include him in this sort of. But most of the contractors I know are kind of always just I don't say like overly stressed out, but it's not a laid back job or career. And I have known a couple who seem to have it more like a business. But will you just talk about generally what's like the default that contractors find themselves? You could probably describe it better than I can in terms of running from one job to another and maybe focusing on the task at hand. And I know bookkeeping, for example, just gets left behind. But maybe talk about what the default is, or what you see as like the core. I don't know, maybe not problem, but the default setting for most contractors.
Yep. Absolutely. Most contractors are people pleasers, and I mean that as a compliment. They like to build things, create things, and show it to other people, but not in an arrogant way. They like to stand back from their work and look at the smile on other people's faces because other people don't know how to do what they do. That's their default. We want to please people. Unfortunately, the problem with that is when you combine that with being a business owner, sometimes what is going to please your customers the most does not bring pleasantness to the current situation. So, for example, hey, let's talk about the budget that you have. Well, that's uncomfortable. I don't want to do that because what are they going to say? I know that this customer doesn't have the budget for the thing that they just described, and I don't want to make them feel nervous. I just want to get the job and show them that I can do really good work, and then everybody will be happy at the end. And I'm sorry, you're in business, and you're in business to make a profit. If not, you're running a charity, and it's okay if you want to run a charity. Just get really clear on what a charity is and what it does and how it runs a mission. But if you want to start your own business, you gotta be in it for the money. Now, that doesn't mean that we do things just for the money, but at the end of the day, if you're not making a profit, then you're just going to be running around pleasing people. So I say that they're people pleasers at heart, and that's a really good thing. But they'll struggle in that people pleasing because it's uncomfortable to say, hey, that wasn't in your contract. and we're going to have to charge you more for it. In fact, oh, we never really got a contract because that's weird. That's hard. There's a bunch of legal stuff. I can just let me build. Just get out of the way and let me build, and you're going to be really happy. And that's where most builders, the stress, like you were talking about, that you were talking about, is that they're just running around trying to please people, and they hold all that stress on themselves. And then they talk to other contractors that are doing exactly the same thing, and they say, "Yep, this is the way it is." We get a lot of satisfaction out of building this project, but customers are really hard. No one ever wants to pay our price. We're not making any money, but man, we can make a lot of people happy, and it comes at the sacrifice of a lot of wasted time, a lot of wasted effort, and a lot of wasted money, unfortunately.
So I know there's some contractors, and their style is to be, in order to maybe, I don't know, overcompensate, but in order to not be a people pleaser, they can be real hard nosed, and they have a long list of dissatisfied customers and employees. They'll kind of cast them off quickly. So I'm hoping and taking what you're saying is there is some sort of a middle ground where you still leave your customers pleased, and you don't leave a wake of angry folks, but you don't get walked all over. Is that sort of the goal?
Yeah, you'll eventually just end up hard-nosed and one of those arrogant type of contractors that people don't really like. And unfortunately, when you're abrasive and when there's a lot of friction there, people don't necessarily go and run around and say what a great person you are. Hopefully they will. But when you create friction with somebody, or you displease them, or something wrong happens, man, they will tell everybody. And then that, unfortunately, it's the bad stuff that gets spread more, and that than the good stuff sometimes. And so you have to get out, you have to get out in front of that. And for a lot of contractors that may be listening, this is a piece of advice I give a lot of my clients, to say, because you're a people pleaser, it's good to be kind to people. And the kindest thing you can do for people, whether you're employees or they're your customers, the kindest thing you can do is tell people the truth. Hey, you want to build that new house? You got $700,000 to do it. We're looking at the plans. I've talked to the architect. This is $1 million project. I know you don't want to hear it, but that's the truth. And anybody that tells you they can do it for your budget is lying to you, or they're incompetent. Yeah. So I don't enjoy this part of the conversation, but I'm going to tell you the truth because it's the kindest thing that I can do for you. Now, if you want to work with us, let's work on what the budget actually needs to be. We can increase the budget if you want to, or we can decrease the scope. And all of this is kind of uncomfortable, but it's the truth. And at the end of this, if we can agree, then we're going to be able to move forward, because building any project, whether it's a small remodeling project, custom house, I don't care if you're doing handyman services, the kindest thing you can do for somebody is to tell them the truth. Same thing goes to your employees. Hey, you come in and you've got, and you've probably, your dad's probably experienced this too. Guy comes in, 20 years experience, all the tools in the world, can do anything, right? Comes in, but man, he won't fill out his time card. He won't turn in his receipts. He won't train someone else and slow down and and take the time with him, because he knows everything. And so as the business owner, you got to pull somebody like that aside and say, hey, Jim, you're awesome. I know you have all the experience in the world. I know you've got every tool and every trick up your sleeve. This is me being kind to you. Nobody likes working with you. So we need to change that. Otherwise, and this is just the truth, you can't work here. I know you can do anything, but no one wants you to do, I know you can do everything, but no one wants you to do anything around here. We can't stand being around you. So let's fix that. Contractors, business owners, they don't want to have that conversation, because they've probably developed some calluses. And like you said, they're hard-nosed, against those things. But that's where I just default, is just tell people the truth, customers and employees.
Is there a difference, or I know that very few people enjoy conflict, and maybe there's some, but some people will avoid conflict and confrontation to the extent that it makes their life more challenging. So what do you tell the folks? Even like those conversations, it sounds great hearing you say that, and it sounds so easy, but even myself, sometimes when I have a uncomfortable conversation that I just kind of don't want to have, most times, or a lot of times, I'll just kind of be like, I'll just just bury it down, or something like that. So is that something that people can get better on, or is that just part of your personality and you have it and I don't?
Well, personality does play a big role into how you communicate with other people. And whenever you hire or work with clients, employees, architects, design, whoever, human beings are all different. We all come to conversations with a different personality. So it can be complex, but you just have to realize what that is. And it comes down to self-awareness. Like, I'm a very direct person. I approach things with a systematic mindset. So like what you're saying here is like, oh, how do you have that conversation? Well, you're talking to someone that used to be an engineer, very systematic way of thinking. So we just develop a system. When someone gets hired, or when we would hire somebody, we say, okay, listen, awesome. We're so happy that you're here, but just letting you know how things are going to go. Eventually, we're going to have some difficult conversations. It might be about a project. It might be about your performance. It might be about whatever. We're going to default to the kindest thing that we can do for anybody is tell them the truth. So when we have a difficult conversation, here's how we're going to go through it. We're going to talk about the things that you need to start doing. We're going to talk about the things that you need to stop doing, and we're going to talk about the things that you need to continue doing. So, and this is a conversation with, like I said early on, when we went from 6 guys to 22 guys, this wasn't something I just came up with. It was something that developed, because when you hire that quickly, you have to fire pretty quickly too, when you don't have a hiring system in place. But we landed on this when we would hire somebody, saying, hey, here's our system for difficult conversations. So we're going to call you and say, hey, Jim, we need you to come in the office. We have to have a difficult conversation. And remember, we talked about this before there were emotions or whatever. We're going to have a start, stop, and continue conversation. So come to the conversation, and we're going to talk about the things. I want to hear what you think you need to stop. And then I want for you to self-evaluate and think, what can you start doing that may help the company or help you in your position, or whatever it is. And then we're going to talk about things that you can continue, like the things that you're really awesome at. But why don't you kind of self-evaluate when we come into this? Let's just say what it is. It's going to be a little bit awkward. And then I, as the leader or the executive or whatever, I would always start that conversation and say, the whole point of this, again, this is just me systematically trying to walk somebody through this. The whole point of this is so that it is constructive, not critical. If it sounds critical, tell me the truth, be kind to me, and say, hey, I took offense to that, because my goal here is not to be offensive. I want to be constructive and not critical. If it seems critical, let's stop the conversation and deal with it right there. Can we agree on these terms? And when you set that up, like I said, in the hiring process, you tell someone, hey, here's our system for difficult conversations. We're going to have difficult conversations. Then when they come into that, they have a framework. They've got some context for it. Sure, if somebody's not performing well, then it should be a difficult conversation, because you hired them to do a job. They're not doing that job, but at least we can get to the nuts and bolts of it and talk about it. Same thing with clients too. I mean, you're not going to have the same type of conversation, but you need to lay out like, hey, here's how the process is going to go. Let me go ahead and tell you, since we're professionals, we've done this a lot. Here's where our clients usually get stuck. This is where they get frustrated. And this is where there may be a gap in some information. So when these things happen, if you're feeling stuck or you're feeling frustrated, it's okay. Here's how you need to communicate with us. Maybe you contact me, the owner. Maybe you contact the project manager. Or that's why it's really important for you to show up and be active in our weekly owners meetings, whatever that thing is. I just say that difficult stuff, you can build a system for it. Build a system for it and get out in front of it and say, hey, something's not going to go right down the road. Let's just go ahead and talk about how we're going to deal with that when it pops up.
Yeah, prepare them. I had a boss who was really good at that, and I really appreciated that. And you said it's earlier about it being kind, and I remember kind of having that thought, like, oh, I'm so glad he told me that, so I didn't, keep making his life worse without knowing. And even though it was a little uncomfortable and I didn't particularly enjoy it, but it really is the kindest thing to, even in a critical way, keep somebody on the right track rather than let them find out way later and then feel even worse about whatever the thing was, or have to lose the job, as opposed to saying, maybe I could have fixed that if you gave me a chance or something.
Yeah, one of those conversations, again, I don't know that there was a lot of structure around it, but I still go back to this. I don't know how many years ago, 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was working for that commercial contractor, and my job was the quality control project manager, and it was on a large commercial project, and we are kind of getting down towards the end. It was a student housing complex here in Knoxville for the University of Tennessee, and it was my job for every different type of apartment unit that was in here, all of the bath hardware, all of the door hardware, all of that stuff. I had to track and bring it in and organize it and make sure that everybody had it or whatever. Anyway, the senior project manager just came into my office one day. He just stuck his head and said, "Hey, Shawn, got to tell you, you're doing an awesome job. You really have everything organized, and really appreciate you that you're here." And I'm like, "Oh, this is great." He said, "But the problem is, you get it to the 1 yard line, and you let it coast in. You're trying to coast into the end zone." And I knew he was absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because I would spend so much time in all of the details and get it all and then just like, oh, I would drive, because you get tired, right?
Yeah.
And he just told me, he was like, "Listen, you're great at your job. Here's how you suck, but this is what we need you to do." And I mean, it was a 10-second conversation. When he walked out of there, I was like, he's absolutely right. I know exactly what I need to do. I need to pick up my game. And it's still a story that I tell today. It's a great leadership example, just saying, "Hey, here's what you're good at. Here's what you're not doing. And here's what I need you to do. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. If not, you're probably not going to be able to work here." It wasn't threatening. It was just like, "Man, this is your job.
Yeah.
Go do it." And I was like, I'm so appreciative of that guy, because it helps put me on the path of, like, I just use that example. Like, when I see it, hey, let's have this weird conversation. Your job is not in jeopardy yet. If I let it go, then I will start to get pissed off about it, because it's just going to add up. So I get in front of it pretty quickly and say, "Hey, let's fix this."
That thing he did and what you mentioned is such a good, almost a tip for people who struggle. You can start these conversations by just telling them something good, get them on the right mindset, and be very sincere. And that just really is such a helpful way to then, this is really great, this is not so great. And man, it's like, just as opposed to the boss we've all had who just hones in on like you never get positive feedback, and so you just only feel like you're terrible. So it sounds like a great leader. So let me ask you, I know there's contractors who don't actually care too much about the money. I mean, some folks really are running a business and they want to, have a cabin at Lake Tahoe someday, but not everybody does. And so are there ways that improving a contractor's business who isn't there for the money can improve their life still? Or are there other perks besides just making more money that people should be thinking about if they might need to improve their business?
No, that's my short answer. Like, if you own the business, you better be in it for the money. Now, a lot of people are going to hear that and they're like, "No," and because I hear it all the time. Well, I'm not in it for the money. I'm in it for the passion. I'm in it for the craftsmanship. I'm in it for all these things. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you own the business, you need to be in it for the money. But I'm not talking about the money for the sake of money. Like, you got to think about the Bill Gates, the Warren Buffetts, the Jeff Bezos of the world. Like, they're not running their businesses for the money, but the money is a measure of effectiveness. Now, what I find is most contractors that tell me, like, "Hey, Shawn, I'm really not in it for the money," that's usually because they've never made any. So I say, if you're not in it for the money, run a really great business, make a ton of money, and then give it all away. It's much better than never. You can change the world in bigger ways and have exactly the life that you want. And it's better to give it all away. You're still at the same place. Hey, it's not about the money. Great. Make a bunch of it and give it away and impact the world. You saying, like, "I'm not going to charge more than my competition and I'm not going to push for this thing." Hey, listen, money is a measure of effectiveness. The more money that you make, it means the more effective you are. Now, I'm not talking about the guys that cheat and get, cut corners and all of those kind of contractors we all know. I'm not talking about those guys, but I'm talking about that guy that's sitting at home saying, "Well, it's not really about the money." Man, make it about the money, because the only reason people will give you more money is because you're adding more value to their lives. When you figure out a system to do that, then the money starts pouring in. Then you don't have to worry about the money. Then you got the money to go do other things with it, like pouring into your community, hiring people, taking more time with them, and transforming someone's life. So for contractors to tell me, "Well, Shawn, I'm not really about the money," I'm like, "Hey, just go get a job. Go get a job and take
Yeah.
that passion and that effort and all of the time you're willing to sacrifice and take
Yeah.
the business part out of it and go be a great employee for somebody else that
Yeah.
is about the money, because they will take your passion and your effort and your time and they will help you make a dent in the world. But if you sit back
Yeah.
and just say, man, I'm not about the money, then I say, then don't be in business.
Yeah, that's really smart. It's really not for everybody. I mean, I don't even know if it's for most people. Let's say there's some younger contract or tradesmen listening to this who are really happy with their job and doing well at it. In fact, I'm thinking of a couple who helped on this spec house project we're building. Guys who are great and they have a great job being treated really well by their boss. But maybe in the back of their mind think someday I might want to try my own thing. What kind of things can those people be doing now, to prepare learning, or what type of separate from learning the trade can guys do who think they might want to be in business, 5 years from now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And this is what I always tell young guys and gals that are starting out that have that similar question, like, hey, I think I might want to go do my own thing. Then I say, okay, spend 24 months being the absolute best employee that you can be for your boss. Make it painful for your boss when you leave. What I mean is, when you say, hey, I'm going to go try my own thing, they're like, man, how can I get along without you? You have
Yeah.
done everything for me. Right. And you're so, like, your attitude's great. You show up on time. You're owning your job and doing that. Like, just go be the best employee, because what will happen is, if you don't understand what it takes to be the best employee and you go out and start a business, then you're going to have employees exactly like you that think after a year or two, oh, I got this in the bag, and they're going to leave. Right.
Mm.
You need to, I just say patience, man, just
Yeah.
patience, become the best employee. And people say, well, my boss is a jerk. Like all the things we talked about, my boss is a jerk. He doesn't communicate with me. He's always scatterbrained. He's always changing the rules. Guess what? If you don't understand how to work through those hardships and still be a good employee, you're going to be that employer in
Yeah.
a year from now, because you're
Yeah.
going to get busy and you're going to get overwhelmed and you're going to start hiring people. You're going to be scatterbrained. You're going to not know how to have difficult conversations with people. And then you're going to turn into the exact guy that you're trying to leave right now. So my
Mm.
advice is, hey, some people are just like, it's in their blood. Like I
Mhm.
described all of the different jobs that I had. I used to think like, hey, I'm pretty well rounded. My wife looked at my resume one time. She was like, looks like to me you can't hold down a job. Some people are just wired to be an entrepreneur, to
Yeah.
start businesses, right?
Yeah.
And when those people come through your organization, just identify it, man. They could go off and be all-stars. And if they came through your company, a lot of people are like worried about like training people and them going off and doing other things. But like, if someone comes through your company and goes off and does great things, people are going to look at you as the stepping stone.
Mhm.
I want to go work there, because look at the kind of person or professional
Yeah.
it produces. And then you
Yeah.
get some of those people in there that think, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. Show them how hard it is to run a business. Show them
Yeah.
how it actually is that you make $1, how you're supposed to stand in front of a client when they don't want to pay your price, and you get them to pay your price because you're thinking, I got payroll to make next week and I got to cover my workers' compensation.
Hmm.
Like, some of those great employees will come in with the idea of like, oh, I just want to spend a little time here and then go off and do my own thing. And then you show them what it actually takes to run a business. They'll be like, oh, heck no. You know what? I
Yeah.
got it pretty good here. I got a lot of freedom. I'm on a
Yeah.
path to management or whatever. Why would I want to go and take on all of that risk and all of that stuff just to say it's my own thing? No, I'm just
Yeah.
going to settle in here and be the best employee I can be.
Yeah. That's smart. Um, I'm gonna give you a multi-part question here. Number one, it seems like a huge amount of, I'll say, entrepreneurship, but just general business and startup mindset is so geared around tech and new innovation and franchise type things, and contracting in the trades is hardly included in the conversation of entrepreneurship. Maybe because it's not new, drywall wasn't invented like last year. But that's of course just as much of a entrepreneurial venture, starting a drywall company. So my question is, for tradesmen who are doing this, are there specific podcasts, books, blogs that are more relevant to them than the the big stuff that's just seems so oriented towards getting $2 million of startup capital. And you hear that sometimes, and it's like, that just doesn't apply to someone starting in the trades.
Yeah. So the question is like other resources like outside of construction that
I
could help.
guess. I mean, maybe what else can, learning and reading can guys do that's relevant for starting in the trades, in terms of just prepping themselves for running a business? Maybe they got the trade down pat, but there's a whole other side to what they're going to be doing.
Yeah. So, I mean, especially when a lot of tradespeople are starting out, they're going to default to the thing that they love, the thing they know, and how to frame a house better, and the building science, and all of those kind of things are out there. And then once they kind of run through the gamut of those, and they know how to build a good project, then what I always recommend is you got to realize that the construction business is just a business, and businesses at some level genetically are all the same. We have to have a product or a service that someone's willing to pay money for. The only reason that anyone would pay money for it is because it gives them value, and you need to make a profit at it. So in the academy that we run, we actually call that the annoyingly simple business diagram. It just says you have this thing that you sell for money. The only reason anybody buys it from you is because it gives them value, and you need to make a profit. If you don't have those four things, then you're not running a business. So when you start looking for other resources, it's just you can really find some great business advice in a lot of areas. Like for me, one of the best investments I made in my business when I wasn't a business coach before. I didn't know how to do marketing online and all of this kind of stuff. I came across, I was in an airplane one day, and somebody had left a Harvard Business Review, picked up that magazine, and was absolutely enthralled. And so you want to get access to how other people run their businesses in other industries, and you can take a look at it, like Harvard Business Review. Get that and read it, and you'll be exposed to businesses of all kinds, and you can see how those different areas of business can apply to a construction business. So that's one.
So you're saying don't worry if they're not talking about a trades contracting business. It's all business.
All business is the same. So expand your ways to learn. So, and there's a ton of podcasts that I like. Obviously, people are listening to this one, but one of my favorite ones is How I Built This, Guy Raz, if you're familiar with him, NPR guy or whatever. And it is story after story after story of entrepreneurs and big, tech companies, clothing companies, product companies that you've all heard of. But when you get to the genetics of it, it's all the same. I didn't have any money. I didn't have any expertise. I just had an idea. I worked my butt off. Some of them go out and raise capital. Others, do like guerrilla marketing in other ways and bootstrap it and that kind of stuff. And there's so much knowledge to be gained there. And it just depends on, don't look at it as like, oh, this isn't about construction, there's nothing to learn here. It's like, no, what can I take out of this that applies to my business? So that's one of my favorite ones.
Is contracting a good business just generally? Meaning if a person doesn't have experience, let's say you've never really been involved in the trades or a given trade, but you're wanting to start a business, should that person steer away from contracting as just a business sort of class? Or does it really require, the journeyman program and then X number of years doing it? I guess for the licensing, you probably have to have the experience either way, but is it a good business just generally?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great business if you approach it as a business. And I've seen a lot of, especially custom home builders, who were like me. Like, I didn't grow up in the trades. I didn't come up, with my dad and my grandfather passing down their tool belt and all of that kind of stuff. I really didn't strap on a tool belt until I was working for that commercial contractor I was telling you about. And then I got around a bunch of tradespeople and professional carpenters, and I thought, well, I know all of the people. I'm going to remodel my own house. And because of the engineering side of it, I could do my own plans and all that kind of stuff. So I literally went out and bought a hammer and a tool belt to remodel my own house. And I just hired out people. So I have found that there's a lot of builders out there that run great businesses who didn't, to look at it on paper, you would think, oh, they'd be at a disadvantage. But because they didn't know the trade, but they knew the business side of it, their only option was to go find quality people, superintendents, foremen, carpenters, and put together a team of subcontractors. They never got stuck out in the field with the tool belt on
Yeah.
And they were able to run the business. And I don't say stuck out there is because a lot of contractors reach out to me and they're like, man, how do I get off the tools? I've got this big business, but it all depends on me.
Yeah.
So it's great from that aspect of it, meaning if you approach it from a building aspect of it. But the other thing about construction is, I mean, every single thing that goes into a house or to a commercial project or whatever is an opportunity for a business. And I tell this story all the time about, I met these guys on this commercial project. And that's when the light bulb moment for me was like, construction has so many opportunities. These were young guys. They all came in. They actually we were close to a college campsite. So they skateboarded in to the job site, pulled out their hard hats, and they came into the office to get signed in. And I was like, who are these young guys? I mean, they were 18 to 22-year-old punks, right? With their skateboard. And they had all this rock climbing gear in their bags.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, and I think I bumped into them. I was like, hey, well, what are you guys here for? And they're like, oh, we do all the external caulking. And I was just like, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I was like, well, what's all the gear for? He was like, oh, well, I mean, we all loved rock climbing, so we had all of the gear, and we just found this. So they were a sub to to the fire caulking sub or whatever. And at that moment, I was blown away to watch these guys when they weren't working, making a ton of money because they were doing something high risk, and they were young and they already had all of the equipment. They just tied off to the building and they basically got to do rock climbing all day and got paid for it and did their, the exterior caulking. And then on the weekends and on the times off, they were just out rock climbing. And for me, I was just like, great business. And you see that throughout construction everywhere. There's so many opportunities to get niche. And I was talking to a contractor yesterday, and I just thought this was a great business model. He's in Chicago, and so he's in a bigger market. But like, all he and his guys do is demo. That's it. That's it. And I mean, think about all those contractors out there that they think they can do the demo themselves, but it's kind of a pain in the butt, and you're probably overpaying yourself, to self-perform that work. And I've always told homeowners, like, hey, no, you can't demo a project because it's not like we see on HGTV where you just take a sledgehammer to everything, right? There's a professional way to demo it. This guy has an entire business set up, and that's all they do is demo for other general contractors. And I just think it's like, that is so perfect. Like, he's like, nope, this is what we do. I hire people with very specific skills. The ones that don't have the skills, we're just teaching them this. And he was like, stays booked up.
Wow, that's really cool. And then he hands the job over to the contractor, and it's squeaky clean and ready to start installing material. And the contractor doesn't have to make 14 trips to the dump in his little, trailer that is too small. And that's this guy's really cool.
Is dealing with high end, high rises in downtown Chicago. Like, you can't just send your guys in there and say, hey, demo this stuff out. I mean, it's 50 trips up and down the freight elevator and all of that. So there's a lot of specialty that comes in to doing that. And, again, a lot of contractors with the mindset, no, we can do that ourselves. But if you're set up and you're selling your value and you're super niche. And so there are hundreds of avenues in construction companies. And I see it all the time. And you'll see like at roofing crews, for example, when I had my construction business and the roofer that I hired, like, they had a cleanup crew. That's all they did, is they showed up at 30 minutes, a couple hours or whatever after the roof started coming off. And they just went from job to job and cleaning up all of the stuff and all of the debris. And then they'd hit each job at the end of the day. And I was like, oh, where did you find these people? And he's like, these aren't my people. They're a subcontractor. And that's all they do.
Yeah, I met a guy who had a corner bead business. In other words, drywall goes in, and you tape and texture. You're used to like the hangers and tape and texture, but this was just the corner bead. All they did was run through houses and nail on corner bead. It blew my mind, and he was making a ton of money. Corner bead. I was like, what in the world? Obviously, the regular drywall guys could do it, but I guess anytime you can specialize, you just get that extra productivity, and you can make everybody's life a little easier. That's amazing. Well, I really appreciate it on your website. In general, you're not promising, and we can all see why, that contracting is any type of a get rich quick thing. There's no promise of easy money. And could you talk about that for a minute? Because I think most of our audience would understand that already, but it is still, I don't know, it just feels like that's the most, like, anytime you're hiring coaches or consultants, there's a faction that seems to be speaking to making money easily. So it doesn't sound like that's what you're doing. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, I steal a quote from Dave Ramsey, if you're familiar with him
Yeah,
at all. He's a no debt guy, cut up for credit cards and
right.
entree leadership and all of that. I think he probably has a $200 million business. Who knows? But he said, in one of his programs, especially the Financial Peace University, he said, "Hey, when you come into this thing, it's like you said, not get rich quick." He says, "We're not selling microwaves; we're selling crock pots. Like it's the
Yeah,
slow way to get there." Uh,
yeah.
same exact thing that we teach our contractors is like it's a process. It's one step at a time. Now I can, and we have a lot of proof of the folks that come into our business training academy. I can look at a business and say, you can raise your prices by 10%. In fact, you have to, because you're not making any money. And what you need to do is stop wasting your time with these type of people that just
Mm,
want free estimates and are looking for the bottom dollar. And you need to focus on selling in this way, having a script, and you can raise your prices, but you got to do, we can get you some pretty quick results. Now, overall, once you get there, then you're going to, as we say, you're going to earn better problems. When you get better customers, they're going to expect more from you, which is because you're asking them to pay a premium price. That's a good thing, which means you're going to have to train your people better, and you're going to have to do some better marketing and all of these other things. But we can make certain steps pretty quick. Overall, the journey, yeah, it does take a long time. We're selling crock pots, not microwaves. But
yeah.
individually, when you break things down, we can put some systems in place that have a really quick turnaround. One of the things first is for people that, if they are not familiar with my book, Profit First for Contractors, then it's just a cash management system that guarantees, if you do the steps in the book, you'll be permanently profitable. But you have to do those steps,
Mm,
and the math is not complicated. And that's another thing a lot of contractors think, well, I don't understand my financial stuff in the books. And I say, hey, if you can read a tape measure and add
yeah.
fractions in your head on the
Yeah.
fly,
Yeah.
that's way more complicated math than the math of your construction business. And
Yeah.
so a couple of we do like to take the fundamental things and just hammer, hammer, hammer on those, because everything builds upon that. And but yeah, construction is not get rich quick. It's get rich slow, but
Mhm.
it's a lot. It can be a lot of fun when you remove the stress and the chaos. But again, to default where I come from,
Yeah.
it's one system after another. And I'm just a big proponent of, there's a system for everything in your business.
I think most contractors would agree that contracting is beautiful and so fun if you could remove the really terrible, annoying parts. But unfortunately, those are the parts that take up most guys' time, in terms of hours of the day. So that's how come they could probably get burned out pretty quickly and just throw in the towel. So, let me ask you this for myself, and I'll speak for my dad here because I know he and I are the same in this way, that hiring people is hard. And I have this problem, and when you hire somebody, it's like a pressure to keep them busy, and you're worried about their productivity. And that has caused me in the businesses I've owned to just avoid it and just do it myself. And that's probably not the right way to own a business. So can you talk about helping, what does it take to help get somebody past that and take that risk of hiring people, letting go of the control and managing that pressure of needing to keep them busy, even if it, you know, isn't as busy as you would be personally?
Yeah. So the way that we kind of approach hiring is, obviously you have to develop a process and get the right people in, but it's very important that you describe what the process is and how it's going to go before someone comes on, and just being really clear. Like, when I hire somebody, I want them to do one of two things: either increase the revenue of the company, and that's my responsibility to figure out what that position is, how that position does that, and bring the right person on to do that, or to save money for the company, to make us more efficient. Like, I'm either one of those ways. Like, that's how you're going to exist here, and we have this job for you to do that. Now,
Hmm.
here's the way you're going to do that. Here's what the job is. Here's your responsibilities, and here's the day-to-day duties. Let's talk about that, because let's make no mistake about it. You're either here to make us money or help save us money. We
Hmm.
think that, and again, you can apply this to any position. We think that as a lead carpenter, as a superintendent, as a project manager, estimator, office manager, whatever that is, here's the way that you either make us money or save us money. And this is how you're going to be evaluated on this. So before you accept this job, if we offer this job to you, let's just be really clear about that. Because if you can't do this job, then you don't get to work here. A lot of times I will talk to construction business owners and they say the exact same thing. It's like, man, that's, we're really scared of hiring somebody because what if they don't work out? Well, they don't work out. Then don't ever hire somebody. Don't ever start a business if you don't ever want to fire somebody. And firing somebody sucks. It sucks because it most likely reveals gaps in your process, or it sucks just because it's kind of an emotional thing. But a lot of construction business owners will say, well, that's a pretty big commitment. Like, I'm going to hire this person and they've got a family and they got to put food on the table. And I say, and this is back to the people pleasing thing. I'm like, yep, I get that. But let's get really, really clear on this. It's not just a one-way commitment. Like, hey, I'm going to gift you this job.
Yeah.
Like you're making a commitment to someone, and the commitment is, here's a job, and when you do this job, I'm going to pay you to do that. Now, we want you to stick around. We want you to grow. And so we're going to invest in you, and we're going to invest in our culture and all of these other things. That's my commitment to you. You got to understand that person that's sitting across from the table that says, I want this job and I want to work here, they're committing to do the job you just gave them. And if they break their commitment to you, it doesn't matter if they've got 0 kids or 15 kids. They don't get to work here anymore because they broke the commitment. But that people-pleasing contractor is going to think like, first of all, this person wants $30 an hour. That's $60,000 a year plus all of the other stuff. That's like $70,000. Oh man, where am I going to get $70,000? And I'm saying, okay, let's boil this back. Let's boil this down here a little bit. If you have the right process in place, how long do you think it will take for you to evaluate whether this person was a good hire? And most contractors that know what they're doing and have gone through some hiring and firing of some bad people or whatever, they're pretty sharp cookies. They know within a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Like this, good. If you know they're not going to work out in a couple of weeks, then you fire them. Now, I'm not trying to be harsh, but that's why it's like, I don't want you to fire. It's going to cost you more money.
Right.
That's why you got to have that hiring process in place to hire the right people. But let's just say, hey, here's the job. Here's everything that's required to do the job. If you don't do the job, you can't work here. Unfortunately, you make that commitment to me to do this job. I'll make the commitment that you get to work here. And after 2 weeks, so you run out $70,000 worth of cost into 2 weeks. We're talking $4 or $5 grand.
Yeah.
You don't need $70,000
to
make the hiring decision. You need a couple of rounds of payroll, because if that person isn't making you money, then they don't get to work there, or if they're not doing the job. Now, I just threw all of that out. It is not easy. It comes down to like, you've got to get really clear on what a job title is, what their descriptions are, what their day-to-day duties are. But man, if you can get that system in place, have that sheet of paper when someone sits across from the table and says, hey, we're really excited about you, but let's have this conversation. Here's the job. And by the way, you're here to make us money. And when you make us money, you're going to make more money, or you're going to save us money. Let's get really clear about that. And then here's how we're going to measure you. So in a couple of weeks, man, sometimes it just takes a little while to figure out where the jobs are, where we keep the sandpaper and the paper clips around here. So you've got some time, a couple of weeks, 30 days to onboard. But after that, you got to do the job. And it doesn't matter if they're senior level or if they're entry level. Hey, if I'm hiring somebody entry level, they have no experience, then you're going to have to train them a little bit more. But I can tell you what I do expect after the first 2 weeks. I can teach you, or my guys can teach you, or somebody in the office can teach you. I can teach you how to master the broom. Mm-hmm. I can teach you how to master the trash can. And everybody that's listening to this knows there is a right way and a wrong way to clean up a job site. There's an inefficient way and there's a bad way. And you can teach somebody that very, very quickly. And that's going to be the first test.
Yeah.
Can you master the broom? Because if you can't master the broom, then you probably can't master the other things that we have coming for you. So you don't get to work here.
Yeah. Good luck, like trimming out a panel or whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you're doing now, what the services you offer to contractors are, and if there's somebody listening to this who has just been like nodding and like kind of really recognizing what you're talking about, what you can offer that person.
Yeah, so we have developed, and we actually launched this year. It's called the Built to Build Academy, and what the Built to Build Academy is, it is on-demand business and coaching programs, training and coaching programs for contractors. And as we say, we create confident construction business owners who want to stop worrying, make more money, and get their lives back. So the way that we've developed the academy, there's 3 levels in the academy, and we don't have to get into all the details, but we call it built to start, built to grow, and built to lead. Built to start program, and again, there's a combination of all of these things. There's online courses that people can take. There is live group coaching where they meet with me and my team and other construction business owners. It's only for construction business owners. They meet with our group 4 or 5 times a month in live group coaching calls, and we're all about building systems. And then there's one-on-one programs where people work with me and other coaches, on a one-on-one basis. But the Built to Start program, we lay the foundation, time management, the business owner's time management. So we teach time management, effective time management, we call it, our paid for planning sales system. That's where, this program's getting, picking up more steam now that we've been advertising and putting it out there for 4 years. But it's like, I teach my clients, you don't give free estimates. And when I say estimates, you don't run around town doing a bunch of professional services for people. You sell them over the phone and get paid to produce that proposal and all that stuff.
Interesting.
Up front. So that's in our entry level, because that's foundational, the way that we develop our systems, like time management, the sales system, no more free estimates. We get paid for professional services. And then the Profit First for Contractors, which is our financial system. So you can understand the profit and loss statement and all that. That for us, a lot of people say, oh man, that's a whole lot. Yep. That's entry level. That's where we're going to start. That's the Built to Start program. Then in the Built to Grow program, we build upon that foundation, and you learn about hiring, estimating, scheduling, and customer experience. And the Built to Grow program is typically a 3-month program, but it includes live group coaching and a lot of other stuff that come with that. And then our Built to Lead program builds upon those 2 layers, and we talk about, we teach our clients on a one-on-one basis. This is our kind of our mentoring program about marketing, budgeting, analytics, forecasting, leadership, and communication. All of the stuff that we talked about before, about like how to communicate, the leadership, the personality, all of that is in our on our one-on-one mentoring program. So if anybody's interested in that, they can just go to builttobuildacademy.com and you can join the wait list, or you can apply for a program. So you can go to builttobuildacademy.com/apply, and you can fill out our application. My team will review that, and then just depending on what size of business or whatever, we'll either end up on a phone call and we can answer some questions about which program is the best fit for you. Because a lot of contractors, they've never done coaching before. They haven't done some of this other stuff. And so they're kind of like deer in the headlights. And so that's why we say, hey, apply for a program. We'll walk you through it step by step. We'll get somebody on the phone. Most likely it'll be me, but it could be one of our other coaches. And we just answer your questions and see. We want to get people plugged into what's going to be a right fit for them. So that's the academy is the product of the last 4 years of working with hundreds of construction business owners all over the world and putting this stuff into a systematic. And that's what we say. It's like, it's not step by step. We teach system by system, and we teach you how to create any system in your construction business.
Man, I wish you did coaching for YouTube channel people, because I'm like needing somebody to like help us with some of these same systems. But like you said, it's probably all business, but I'm sure there are some contractors listening to this who are feeling that it's not pressure, it's just stress and that weight of being behind and trying to keep up. I've sometimes wondered why there's not more. I'm not wondered, but franchises are kind of a nice business because they build all these systems for you. If it's a KFC or whatever. But with contracting, it's just, I don't know why, it's just harder for a franchise to work out. So people, I guess, have to come up with those systems either on their own or just struggle, which is what a lot of them do, huh?
Well, a lot of times too, like you're talking about the franchise, there's barriers to entry for certain professions and certain businesses, right? You got to step up to do a franchise. You got to step up with some money.
Yeah.
And for a lot of construction businesses, especially great ones out there, you're competing with all of the, like, guy with the truck and some tools says he's a contractor. And like you've gone through years and years of experience. You've got systems in place and you've done some of these other things, but your customer, hey, they don't know unless you tell them, like, what's the difference? So there's no shortage of contractors that are struggling because there are very few barriers to entry. Like I said, rock climbing, caulking guys, right? They just saw a need and they filled it and they got into the business. Who knows what systems they have built or whatever.
Right.
But if anybody else wanted to come in and do that same thing, they probably could if they weren't scared about going over the side of the building. Very small barriers to entry there. And so what makes the difference too is realizing that, like, you got to separate yourself from those people, from the contractors that are just struggling. They're always going to struggle because they think that their way is the only way. There's only one way to do it. You can't charge more than 20% and clients suck and all of this kind of stuff. You got to understand, like, when you struggle in your construction business and you ask other people, you got to consider the source. And again, I'll go back to Dave Ramsey. He always says, like, don't take financial advice from someone that's not a millionaire. Yeah. So for you contractors out there, I know you've got a great network of people that you rely on a lot of technical information, but you got to look at their business you got to consider the source. And I'm not saying that we've got it all figured out, but what we do have it figured out is we brought a group of construction business owners together, and we know the systems that we teach work because we've seen it time and time again. And that's what we're all about. So if you're struggling in your construction business and you're reaching out to your network of people, then realize you got to understand, are they running a systematized, streamlined construction business? Are they making the money? Are they using money as a metric of effectiveness? If money is just money for them and they're caught just being a people pleaser, then you got to step outside, get outside and get some outside perspective on your business if you really want to run a business that you can remove yourself from. And that's the great thing that we teach in the academy, is saying we want to give you the ability to do whatever it is that you want to in your business. If you want to wear the tools all the time, great. Create a business that isn't dependent upon you wearing the tools.
God, that's
and then
cool.
you can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
We've had clients that come through, and I'll tell you, this is the hard part. Like, when they go through the whole academy and through Built to Lead, and we've had clients that have sold their business to their employees, or they just get to be the CEO. They're not even running the day-to-day operations. They're just owning the business. They have called me and they said, Shawn, man, I got a problem. And I'm thinking, like, oh crap, what's broken? Who left? Who quit? What do we got to put in place? And they'll say, Shawn, I don't know what to do.
Wow.
I've got more money than I've ever thought possible. I'm spending more time with my kids, but I don't know what to do. And it actually causes stress because they spend 10, 20 years fighting these fires and dealing with this chaos. And then when they get that relieved, it's stressful. They don't know what to do. My answer is always the same. Okay, we're at this point. Take a deep breath. Just go do it again. Like, go start another business or do whatever you want. But for those construction business owners out there, and some of them are probably pretty close to that, I'm just letting you know that day is coming. There's some stress there too. When you become successful, you're going to look around and be like, crap, what am I supposed to do? That's why I say, like, plug back into the community. You become a mentor. You find somebody and just pour into them, because that day is coming where you'll feel stressed because you don't know what to do because your team and the systems are working.
Yeah, well, it's not fun to be so busy and so spread out, but it's also not fun to be idle. Think that's like half the torture of being unemployed. It's all the torture of being unemployed. It's misery to be not doing something productive. Well, Shawn, thanks so much for coming. This has been really interesting, and we'll put the links to all of your sites and social media accounts in the description and in the show notes. And I really feel like you're doing just a valuable service. I don't know if this type of coaching, it has been around long or not. I have no idea, but I'm sure there's people who you're really helping, and I think it's just terrific, and can't thank you enough for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me, and whatever I can do for you and your audience, just let me know.
Sounds good. Okay, we'll catch you next time. Thanks, Shawn.
All right, thanks, Nate.